message me. Welcome to the DistroBoss podcast. I've got a bit of this is going to be a teaching session. I've got lots of, I decided to go through a pretty complex sequence of, a complex sequence, steps that you would take to raise capital. I mean, I've spoken about it in the last two podcasts I did like this. I spoke about accessing credit and how to just get fast access to fast money by basically going to the bank. The bank's a pretty good place to go for fast money because all you're really doing is filling out an application form, right? It's based on like certain qualifying things like like your credit report, like your credit profile in general. But ultimately it's kind of like just going to a test, right? You kind of prepare yourself as best as possible. There's no selling involved. There's no persuasion involved. It's like you're just showing up to this test and you're going to see what you get, right, as a result. And they're going to issue you or award you however much credit they're going to award you. Now, there's obviously things that you can do in preparation to get the most amount of credit available, but it's not guaranteed for the most part in terms of how much you'll get. And there's always things that can happen that you may not have been aware of that can hinder your application, and you can end up with a lot less. But however, credit is one of the easiest, most fastest ways to get access to money, especially if you're a startup. This is what I would call like the real original startup funding, right? This is without asking anybody else for money. This is not considered pre-seed or seed. This is really just going to the bank, setting up a business bank account and saying, hey, look, give me one of those business credit cards based on, qualify it based on my own personal credit score. And let's see how much we can go and get into business. The second thing, though, that people want to get involved with is raising money from investors, right? So going out and getting those pre-seed, seed rounds, going and finding angel investors. If you're going to be raising capital for, whether it's for a real estate project, an asset-backed project, whether it's for a business, you want people to invest in your business. Maybe you want money to invest in other businesses. Maybe that's what you're trying to do, and you're kind of setting up a fund, and you're looking to raise capital. And so you understand that there's a lot of money to be made like this, and if you're looking to buy other businesses, but you also know there's a lot of money to be made if your business plan can be executed with a lot of runway, as in a lot of money involved, because that can give you the buffer that you need, right? So it's very difficult sometimes to run a company on a shoestring. People talk very proudly about bootstrapping businesses, and that's fine, and you need to, in many sense, but there's different levels of bootstrapping. There's bootstrapping an online company, an online business, which is kind of cheap, and all you're really worrying about is the ad costs after some very small software fees. But then you have other things like, if you're getting involved with manufacturing and you need equipment, or if you're getting involved with anything that's kind of equipment or intensive, then you're going to need to have a lot more money on the front end to be able to even get involved with that business. And that's really where investors come in. And especially when it comes to yes, there are options with the banks, but you have to build up have a track record with the bank. You have to have a certain behavioral score with the bank. They have to kind of know who you are before they'll start providing you access to significant amounts of capital. And then you've got other things like hard money lenders, bridge loans, that sort of thing as well, where you can tie it to real estate as an collateral, and those are options too. But what I'm going to show you in a minute is kind of like a strategy that you can apply to pretty much all kinds of real estate type assets. Like if your ambition is to become a multifamily millionaire tycoon, or if you want to buy hotels or office blocks or storage facilities, land, anything to do with like hard assets, like real estate, like that, this will work. Equally, it will also work, and I'll explain as I go through this how it could work for buying or raising capital for an LLC, for a business, like a private placement, because it does really follow the same roadmap. It's just that the doodle that I'm about to show you is going to show you a picture of a piece of real estate. So that's my little disclaimer there. It's that yes, there's certainly real estate, but I'm going to show you how and where this can be swapped out for an actual business that you're raising money for. And I'll explain it as I go through it. So after that, we should have two other guests coming on the show. We should have, these are kind of blind guests. I haven't really met them before, but they are people who are raising capital. They're business owners, they're founders, they're passionate about what they do, and they have a business plan, they have a pitch deck. They even have MVP. They've got something created already, or they're at concept stage and they're thinking about getting involved, and they're just trying to understand what steps that they should take, or they're trying to pitch their business here today. So it'll be really interesting to see what those companies are. They'll be showing up probably in about half an hour. Will be our first guest, and I have another one coming in at an hour. So it's going to be a bit of a long one. So let me show you before we get to speak to those lovely guests of ours. Are going to be this doodle that I prepared once upon a time. And by the way, let me just clarify this doodle when it comes on stage. Let me just I'll bring it up so you can see it. This is the doodle. Do you see my doodle? This is me. This is my doodle. I drew this myself when I had a lot of time. And I'm going to take you through this because this was my one page. It's one page there, complete sequence for how to raise capital. I'm going to take you through this. So you're going to go on a little journey with me here. And I know this is going to soak up a little bit of time. So I hope you have some time to kind of stick with me, because as I go through each step, you'll kind of see how we're getting closer to the money. So that bucket of money in the corner there, that's where we want to get to. Investors paid. And I'm going to show you how that happens throughout this whole process. I'm going to go through all the contracts that you need to have in place. If you watched the last podcast, I did cover some of those there. But I'm going to show you how it all works in sequence. Just to give you some context, like, when did I draw this? When did I doodle this? I doodled this about 3-4 years ago. Now this is the gold standard of how to raise capital, right? So regardless of whether or not it was 4 years ago or 10 years ago, the process is still the same. And I'm going to walk you through it. Now, you might not be aware of like my background. My background is I've raised over $800 million, and I stopped counting at 800. Really, I mean, 800 million was what was calculated a few years ago. $800 million since 2010, where I've been raising money for businesses in a variety of different ways. These are businesses that are, they need some fundraising, or these are, multifamily real estate opportunities, hotels, student accommodation, assisted living, that kind of stuff. Even selling into the alternative space, like where I've worked with companies that are selling, rare earth metals and precious gems, and where they're selling investments in alternatives. And it could be anything. Then you start talking about wood, investments into agriculture, investments into just land banking, and even some really cool, interesting stuff. And obviously Bitcoin and cryptocurrencies fall under that banner as well. And so I've really definitely been around the block when it comes to, when it comes to raising money for lots of different types of things. And by the way, the process that I'm about to share with you right now is the same process that works for every single one of those type of cap raises. So this really is a masterclass. This one-page doodle that I've shown you. And I should also tell you, in raising all that money, I have made mistakes too. One time I did get burned really badly. I raised money for a bad actor. The company that I was raising money for, the owner of that company, stole that money, raised $56,400,000 in about 11 months for that business. They were building office space, commercial office space. It was co-working, if you know what co-working is. It's office space for people to use, and it was a real estate play. But after about 12 or so different locations being opened up, the owner of that company decided that he wanted to siphon the rest of the money out of the banks into somewhere else that wasn't where it was meant to go, and proceed to kind of try to cover his tracks. And eventually it all fell foul. And trouble was, I had turned turned a blind eye to some of the red flags very early on, namely the fact that he was using a different name. But listen, that's a story for another time. But either which way, I was duly incarcerated. I was charged and incarcerated for that. And I learned a very, very, very tough lesson. It was one of my most important mistakes I've ever learned. You've got to be very, very diligent when it comes to due diligence, and you've got to have your moral compass in play, and you can't just get too good at raising money like I did, and just stop caring about the products that you're raising it for, as in the companies that you're partnering with. So I certainly felt I was insulated somewhat to a degree. I also felt that it wasn't actually going to go as bad as it did, and it did happen. But I did end up having a lot of time on my hands while I was in prison. And one of the things I did was, you know, when you have a lot of time on your hands, what do you do? And, you know, you start getting a bit creative. I think, well, at least that's what happened with me. And a lot of the people in the place where I was, you know, they were curious to understand how you raise money. Like, how do you raise millions of dollars? How do you pull in 800 million? How do you pull in 56,400,000 for that one company? And it was all, you know, how do you raise 10 million for a property? Like, how do I get into the real estate game? How do I buy a business? I want to get involved with buying businesses when I get out. And there's lots of, so what I ended up doing was like, let me help you by, you know, slowing down and trying to simplify the process in this one page that I could just kind of walk someone through. And so I pulled this out the other day. And by the way, this is it. I'll show you here on the bigger screen what this looks like. You can see this here. I actually drew this myself. So actually I brought that back with me, mailed it home. So this is really just a scanned version. And this is really, this is gonna be essentially the pathway. Now I'm gonna have to break this up into like 2 different sections. But probably I'm gonna get halfway through this, and then we're gonna have our first guest on, and then after that, we'll probably end up finishing it off before the following guest comes on. All right, so let's get to it. You know, let's see how good this one pager, how easy to understand this one pager is. Okay, so the first step is, and this is what I was actually developing as my 4D sequence. It was decide, define, design, and distribute. I thought that sounded cool, like the 4D framework, but like kind of like 3D became 4D. But decide, define, design, distribute, somehow has a bit of a tongue tie. Like, it's hard to remember which one comes next. But lo and behold, that's what I did at the time. Anyway, so I've got a couple of doodles here of like a hotel, an office block here, an apartment building, a storage facility, a land development, a piece of land that's available, parking lots. This could also be, you could have a picture of a business here too. So any business that you're interested in buying, okay? It could be one that's not yours. It could be somebody else's business, or it could be your own company. You're going to set up a fund to invest into your own business so that you can, it's essentially raising capital, you're fundraising for your company to get access to the money that you need. So, but this was specifically for like developers. So I doodled apartments and you know, real estate projects here. But the process is the same. So you've got to decide on what type of business or property you want to develop. So this is, you're either choosing a property that you want to get involved with, or you're choosing, you know, to invest, to create an entity that you will raise money for, i.e. your business. And so that's kind of the point we're making here. Then you want to decide on the deal, right? So in the case of, so this part's a little bit specific to you finding another company or a business. You want to contact the seller and get a price. And if you don't have a price, if it's your own company, then you want to kind of establish a valuation on it. And by the way, this is not, we're not referring to convertible notes here or safe notes. This is really more of a private placement of fund. So this is where we're going to get some level of a valuation, either on your own company, or if we're going to contact a seller for a business or a piece of property. I mean, ultimately, like an apartment complex or an office block or a hotel is effectively a going concern, right? It's a business, it's commercial investment. So you're going to contact them and get a price point. This is you contacting the seller to get a price. You want to know, you know, ballpark what it is that thing is selling for. And then you have a couple of options when it comes to real estate. Option one is you want to get an early exit, where you want to develop the property and you want to simply increase the price by doing some refurb on that property and then sell it. So you want to sell it and you want to split the profit between yourself and the people that gave you the money to buy it, right? So the investors. So, you know, let's say they gave you the $10 million that you needed to buy this apartment building. Then, you know, let's say it increases by 2 million. And you get to keep 20% off the uplift, or 30% off the uplift. So you get 30% off the 2 million that it's increased in value by. Maybe you got the same in terms of how much rent roll was created from the thing. Equally, if it was a business and it's kind of like a private equity play, and you were buying a business with the money that you raise, you're essentially like, you know, you're buying it, you're maybe cutting off some fat. This is the private equity play here. When it comes to buying a business, and you're kind of making it leaner and meaner, and then you want to just sell it for a higher value, right? Because it's basically producing more profit now. It's got less expenses, it's more lean, so you can sell it for more. You know, 5x the thing. And so, and then that's an early exit. And a lot of people, that's what they do. Okay. Even when it's your own business and you're not looking to buy another, but you're trying to raise money for your own company. You're raising money for your business. You're getting the money that you need to grow. You increase its profitability. You reduce its expenses. So you've been, you're playing economies by scale. Economies of scale. You've got access to wealth, so you can get better. Phone's ringing. Got to stop that. Okay, so you've got the opportunity to raise capital for your own company. Almost lost track of my thoughts there. It's a good thing I have these doodles in front of me, so that you can essentially, you can split you can share the profit with yourself as opposed to other investors. The investors are coming in, you're going to get the profit into your business, and then when you can position yourself for a sale, and essentially get bought out by a larger business. So you can make yourself look pretty tasty to another private equity company who's looking for a buyout. The other option is the late stage exit, which is essentially where you want to develop property, you want to manage the operation, increase its ROI, and then share the ongoing profits, so that your exit is like way further on down the road. So like if it is, again, a business that you're buying and it's not real estate, and you're not worried about just like holding this thing forever, it's a business. It's really where you're just trying to increase. I'll give you an example where companies are trying to raise money to just increase their market share. They're not trying to like unicorn or go to the moon. They're just saying, okay, we need another 5-10 million so we can capture this much more of the market. And if we do so, we're going to get this much more, this many more dollars in profit. And as an investor, you can just benefit from that over the long term. And so that's a really simple, that's like your long-term play. And again, same deal with your company. You get investors in for the long haul, get them in there, and they'll stick with you long term. And so the exit is really kind of undefined. It will be something that happens later on down the road. So you have your early exit strategy and you have your late exit strategy. Again, this is overly simplified, but it's to give you an idea, right? You've picked your property, your real estate, your business, whether it's your own fund or a fund to buy another business. You've got a valuation on it, and then you're deciding on how you're going to treat this investment. Is it going to be a quick and when I say a quick sort of exit, an early exit, we're not talking about a couple of weeks here. We're still talking months, months to potentially up a year. And then we're going to do something that will make it valuable, right? So the first thing you want to do is take it off the market. So if it's real estate and it's on like LoopNet, it's on the market, everyone can see that it's available for sale, and you've made an offer. You want to pull it off the market so that you can tie it up. You want to tie that thing down so that no one else can get access to it. So this is where and again, same deal with businesses. If a business is actively looking for money and you like this business and you know that you can take this business to the moon, then you want to take it off the market. Of course, if it's your own company, then this doesn't apply. But you essentially want to get the deal off the market. You want to lock it down as soon as you can. And the first thing that you can start off with, which is pretty much borderline free, is a letter of intent to the owner of the entity that you're trying to purchase. Okay. Obviously, this doesn't apply to yourself unless you're about to write yourself a letter. But if it's a developer, if it's an owner of an asset-backed property or business, or an entity itself, a business itself, you get some kind of agreement on paper so that you can essentially tie that thing down. Right? Even if it means giving. I've done this before, by the way. Like, I've actually offered 20 grand goodwill gesture, like take this down for 6 months. I don't want I want complete 100% exclusivity. I want anyone looking at this. You weren't trying to sell it before I got involved. So here's 20 grand, buy yourself something nice. Just get this off the market. This is mine. So once you're in that position, now you've got some room. All right. You've got some room. You've got to start doing stuff. Okay. But this doesn't mean the stuff that you do is, let's keep this with like property here. Like you haven't got the money yet. You're not able to actually buy the building at this point, but you know that if you do, you're going to need a couple of things in play. You're going to need, but for anyone else to understand what those things are going to be, you have to be able to represent that in the correct way to the potential investors out there, because how are they going to know what the actual plan is? You've just found a listing and said that you want to buy it, and investors are going to say, and you want investors to pay for it for you. This is where you now need to start working on defining the deal in such a way that investors can very quickly understand how their money is going to work for them. So if they're going to place, ultimately this, remember the mindset of an investor. You're the one that's passionate about your business, but an investor is, well, they're lazy. I mean, they're not all lazy. I shouldn't say that, but I want you to think about them as lazy people. If you're the one trying to raise money, all the investor wants to do is they want to come to you one day, park $5 with you, and leave it with you for a little while to come back later, perhaps a week or 2 weeks later, and pick up $10. That's all they want to do. Okay. Then everything beyond that is the justification, right? Everything beyond that is like, what is it that they're going to invest in? What are they going to be? Where are the returns going to come from? What kind of industry is it in? Is it like a disruptive industry, or is it a safe and stable industry? Is it something that's considered, or maybe considered, a fad? That's like, they're kind of riding a wave up to take advantage of something brand spanking new that we all know isn't going to last forever. But you've got different investors with different appetites, and that's something that we'll show you how to find those people. That's part of like what we do as a business, and we can always teach people how to do that, because there are you got investors from that essentially cut from different cloth. But what you're going to have to do is this next line, which is essentially like preparing a deal. So you're going to have to spend some money, but you're not buying the building yet, right? So the buildings, let's say, is 10 million or 100 million, but you've got to spend some money kind of wrapping it up, right? But you haven't bought it yet. You have an LOI on it. So that means you have, for all intensive purposes, you've got exclusivity on this thing. So then what you're going to do is you've got to sell it. You've got to sell it before you buy it, right? So that you can raise capital to put into a fund so that you can actually go and deploy it in that business. Now, I'm not going to proceed. I'm going to hold back just a few seconds because, well, a few steps here, not a few seconds, because it looks like we have our first guest, Joey, who's about to jump on. So let me just put this away, and I could probably even go through some of this with him, maybe, if it's relevant to what he's doing. But we'll get back to this right after that conversation's over. So let me just put this away and bring Joey to the stage. How's it going, Joey? Oh, we can't hear you. You got your mic turned off. Say something now. I think we can hear you.
Can you hear me now?
I can hear you now.
All right.
How's it going, Joey?
It's going wonderful.
Very, very good. Now, so normally this is going to be a blind guest, like in terms of someone I haven't met before, but I actually have met you before. We spoke last week.
Yeah.
We did speak last week because you have a pretty cool app that you built. I remember now.
Yes.
It's a very interesting app. It's specifically designed with entertainers in mind, right? People in the entertainment industry. Why don't I stop, destroying the sales pitch for your app? Why don't you let everybody know what it is that your business is, and we'll start talking about what kind of money you're raising and what your plans are with it.
Yeah. So basically, it's an entertainment app for musicians. And when I say musicians, I mean musicians of all genres, comedians and entertainers, which when I say entertainers, like dancers and orchestra, opera. So it's kind of a all-in-one app that's separated, you could say, genre-wise and organized for entertainers. And with this app, they can basically sell their audio, video, and live events to their fans. And they can do it, through the app.
Mm-hmm.
And they get paid in 48 hours after every sale of an event.
48 hours, no like 1 week holding period like half the other payment processes out there. So that's pretty quick. And so what's the name of the app itself?
The name of the app is Outlet App.
It's the Outlet app, right? So this is something that's available on both iPhone, Android, and people can literally use it. They can, and they're able to get paid via this thing. So it's kind of like, what springs to mind is like those kind of freelancer websites like Fiverr and that kind of thing. Like, I guess there's a little bit of overlap, obviously, but they're designed for different things. This is niche specific. But you can see that if like the challenge being, well, I think you've got the business case, the operations being something that's going to be always a challenge in any business. But you've got
Mm-hmm.
this like you've got this when it comes to software, it's almost like, and I have this personal thing with software because I've tried to build my own software. I've tried to build my own app, and I did build it, but it was a journey, man. Like it was so difficult. It was so
Mm-hmm.
difficult to build it. I don't know. Are you a coder yourself? Did you code your app yourself, or I don't think I asked you that question last time.
No, I didn't code it myself. I actually hired a company to do it. I kind of went into the process actually blind
You went in
because
blind.
I just had the ideal, called the company, first company that accepted me. I went with them, and that company that I originally went with, they closed, I would say 4 years into the process.
Oh,
So then I had to find another company to continue everything to get it to Apple and Android.
right. So you had to. That's a bad place to be. Did you lose the code when they disappeared, or were
No,
you
I was
always?
able to get the source code and everything back because I own it. So
Mhm.
I was able to, retrieve everything and just take it over to the next company.
Right. Well, I mean, I remember having everything saved on this one server with my experience, and the whole app was being built by this one developer, and then obviously things went up, topsy turvy, and they ended up having to shut down. But they shut down their entire operation, including their own servers and whatnot. And I
Wow.
hadn't made any backups, so everything that we had was sitting on their side. And I had gotten some files from them here and there, which is like supposedly the code and whatnot, but it wasn't complete. And so
Yeah.
whenever I went to like the next developer, it was kind of like when you ever seen them. Remember like the old like parody against like when people like refer to like mechanics when they kind of suck in air as they look at your engine and they open the hood and like,
Mhm.
oh, I don't know what the last guy did with this.
You're
We've got to
right.
start all the way over again. And it's like you're like, what? And it's so expensive. And because software is one of those kind of businesses where you spend a
Yeah.
lot of money developing it, and then you end up with a product, and it's like, okay, I now need to make money, so I've got to sell it. And so you switch from like all this expense being devoted to like developing to then marketing, and you're
Yep.
hoping that you get this kind of like this crisscross, right, where you have all this expense up top, but then the expenses drop significantly, but your profits, which were basically nothing at first, start to come up. So you end up with
Hmm.
that X and that equilibrium, that point at which you break even, right?
Yeah.
I get that, but so where you are now is you have the app. I mean, I went on the website before. I've seen it. It's a good looking website. You've really taken the time to put it together. I mean, the design is the design is on point. The app works, right? I remember you saying that you had actually tried it. You've
Yes.
put a bit of pressure
Yes, the app
testing.
works. Yes, I
Yeah,
have it's a few people using the app right now, and that's what I'm basically doing in the process of just promoting it and getting the word out so people will know it's available.
yeah, and that's on the front end. Okay,
Yeah.
that's customers coming in to utilize it, and that's
Yes.
really that's lifeblood. You need that. But like, what's your challenge now? You're looking to raise money. I know you're looking to raise money because you need to put some rocket fuel under this. So
Yes.
what's your capital raising plan? What is it that you need the money for? And where do you expect it will get you once you've got it?
Because basically I promotion of the app.
It's the
That's
promotion.
basically what yes. That's what I need, yeah, for promotion.
Yeah. Well, promotion is expensive, right?
Yes, it is.
It's expensive to promote, especially like but you being in the entertainment space. We were speaking to someone recently, last week Friday, actually, about they were same sector, but it's like you could have this compound effect because it just so happens that whenever you do deal with people in the entertainment or arts, they tend to have a big following. There's a lot they tend to on their
Hmm.
social media platforms. Like less so in like more conservative sort of corporate world stuff. Like people don't always have the biggest following, but so to try and tap, you sell to one person, you're kind of selling in a vacuum to that person. But I think if you're able to sell to other and entertainers and people involved with the arts, there's a you could have this sort of spill effect. That's the word I'm looking for, like a spill effect to other entertainers as well, where they kind of you're leveraging word of mouth. So it's kind of like influencer
Hmm.
marketing, not right?
Yes, basically, that's all it is.
Yeah.
That's
So
all it is. And this is the only platform that's just entertainment based. It's not just influencer based or just get on there and do whatever you want to do based. It's just
yeah.
entertainment. That's it. Where they are in control
Okay.
of
Okay.
their career, finance, and they can actually release it how they want to.
Yeah. All right. And so how much money are we talking?
For to use the app, or did I invest?
No, how much, yeah, how much did you invest and how much are you looking for?
Oh, okay. How much did I invest? Wow. I didn't even actually add it all up, but it
Okay.
was a lot. It
It
was
was a
a
lot.
lot. Yeah, that I
Okay.
invested thousands,
Thousands.
thousand. Yes,
How long did it
but
take you?
6 years.
Oh, and a lot of time. So it's like
Yes.
time, money, sweat equity. I got it.
Yeah.
6 years is a long time. Like when did you end up with the MVP? Like
Um.
the minimal viable product?
Right. It was what, about a month? No, no, no. About 8 weeks ago. 8. Yeah, about 8 weeks ago.
About 8
It
weeks
came.
ago.
Yeah.
So you're this is the early stage for you. So now you're like, okay, this needs to
Yeah.
make money. And you're
Right.
not living off this thing yet. This business is not.
No.
No? You're
Nope.
working. You working. What's your story? What's your backstory? What's the deal with
Well,
you?
I used to be a musician. That's my backstory as far as what made me just be inspired to do this and understand a musician and what they're going through to be able to build what they wanted. But my backstory is I used to be a musician and I got presented with contracts that just wasn't good for my future. So after that, just, lived life, said, I'm giving up music. And I had a daughter and she was a concert music lover. So that got
Mm,
me back into just, going to concerts and loving music again. But as I'm doing that, I'm noticing we're still back in, 1980 with concerts and just the way
oh, have we lost you?
I don't know what happened.
Oh, I think you froze for a little bit there.
Can
I can hear
can
you.
you hear me?
I can hear you.
Okay. Let me get back in. Yeah, I think the signal faded.
Okay,
Okay, can you get me back?
yeah, let me bring you back in here. There we go. You're back.
Yeah, okay, okay. So yeah, as I was going to concerts, I just realized, you couldn't um oh, it's getting feedback now. You couldn't order a concert on your phone or nothing. So I'm like, that's interesting. Because it was costly because a lot of concerts wasn't coming to Milwaukee where I live. I would have to go, to different states. So spending hotel money, ticket prices, gas money, it just was getting costly and taking off work. So that's what just,
Mhm.
inspired me even more to create the app, just to make it convenient for artists and consumers.
Artists and consumers. Okay. So so that's where it was born from. So now you've built it, you've taken it past the concept, the napkin. You've gone to the point where you've paid for developers to build the thing. You've now got it built. It's taken you 6 years. You're working, you want to stop working your day job. You want this to be your main thing. But this thing isn't making enough money yet. So you need to raise money so that you can promote it. Okay. So
Yeah.
we're at this point. So now the question is, what kind of money are you wanting to raise? Like, what's the number, the initial sum of money that you need?
An initial sum. That was something I didn't think about neither. And it sounds bad because it sounds like I'm not prepared, but I mean, I would have to put together a package to really get a full understanding of what I need. And that's why I was telling you from our previous conversation, I would like to get with an investor that know the space and we kind of understand what to put together and the best way to market it.
Right. See, that's where, yeah, you're looking for a strategic partner. A
Yes.
strategic partner. But you got to make my thing is you've got to get to the point where you're raising you want to raise some money, and this is my own opinion based on what you've said so far. Like you've got the MVP, and I know where this is, by the way. You have a software, you have an app on both the iPhone and the Android device. So you have a piece of kit, a piece of tech that people can work with, but your user base is real small. So
Yes.
if you just go to another investor who's got very deep pockets and they're a strategic, you're looking at them as like a strategic partner potential. But the reality is, if they really do like what you're doing, they might just say, well, I don't need you, and I can replicate that app that you have, and I can just do it
Hmm.
myself. I don't actually, and I can simply pay a school of developers to do this in record time with new stuff like AI integrations and all the bells and whistles. And you kind of, they can just execute faster than you can. So what's going to be the thing that makes you more attractive to a strategic partner, where they feel like they couldn't do this without you, or that they need to catch the carriage on your train rather than try and find somewhere else to go. And normally, especially when it comes to software, if you haven't created like the code, and you're not the code, or you're not like the Mark Zuckerberg who kind of built Facebook by himself, or
Hmm.
at least we all believe him to have done so. Like, it's your what have you got? The one thing you have is, okay, you have a good story, you've come from that sector, but what you really need is users in there.
Yes.
And if you have a list of users, like let's say you had 1,000 people using the app, that just already makes you valuable. Like, any
Yes.
investor is going to look at that and say, well, 1,000 people using the app, what's the transaction volumes? How much can we increase those transaction volumes to where we can make a profit? What are the percentage profits that we can make on each transaction? Like, what, by the way, is that how it works? Is it a transaction fee on everything that goes through the platform?
Yes. Well, this
Okay.
is the thing. This is where my value come in. An investor won't even understand how to use this app and how to put it together
Right.
because what I created is direct sales with social media. If it was that easy, it would have been created. And I could tell when I present it to people, they don't understand it. So then when I break it down, the light bulb goes off.
Okay, break it down a bit more then, because even I feel like I'm kind of missing it myself. Like, let's go through it
Right.
step by step. Yeah, let's go through it step by
So
step.
with streaming, we could talk about streaming. Streaming is
Mhm.
a broken system. It's nothing but data that they're collecting in advertisement. So you can't even pay an artist out of a subscription to make it worthwhile for artists. That's number one. Number two, what I created is for artists to profit from direct sales socially. That's the
Okay.
only way it'll be inspirational for musicians to constantly create.
Okay, so people will essentially pay to listen or to view or to hire,
Right.
right?
And this how it works. So a musician have two, you could say, ways to set their payment. You could
Mm,
let the public pay what they want, or you could set the price. So how it works is you set up your profile, you download the app, set up your profile. Then you could upload clips for marketing, or you could release your album. And when you release your album, you could just charge everyone to purchase your album. Or you
okay,
could do a video album and just charge for people to see your video album. And that'll go into their library when they purchase it. And then you'll be able to, profit off of what you're selling.
right. Okay. I feel like there's a lot of other apps out there that do similar stuff though, right?
No, there's not one app that do what the outlet do. Go and research. It's not one. That what was amazing to me,
That
that
there's
there
no,
wasn't one app that you can directly go social with your fans, do a virtual concert. Name one app you could do a virtual concert on that everybody know,
yeah, I mean, I'm
that you could do a
thinking,
live event and
yeah,
charge.
I guess all I'm thinking of is, well, to charge people to enter. I mean, I get it. Like there are some apps that like you Rumble and stuff like that where you can kind of pay to play and but these are like streaming services, right? They're essentially
That's the point I'm making. Artists are not getting paid off streaming services. You have to stream 1,000 times before you get a third of a cent or however their payment system is set up. Don't nobody know.
okay.
We
Okay.
don't know how the streaming services are subscription based. OnlyFans is subscription based. This is the thing. Okay. Say every artist had an app or charge a subscription.
Okay.
Do you think the fans can afford to pay a Beyonce subscription, a Taylor Swift subscription, and every rapper and R&B singer that they like subscription?
No, I don't think that'd be quite
That's
expensive.
why that system don't work. OnlyFans is that. You go to OnlyFans and you're paying subscriptions for what you want to see. Streaming don't work. It's only so much money you can charge for people to stream 1,000 songs. You can't pay nobody out of $9. When you got Apple and Google taking a cut, you got the record labels taking a cut and the streaming services. Where's the money for the artists?
Right. Right.
So what I created, you can go socially with your fans. Just go live and talk to them. Then you can do a virtual concert with your fans and charge them. And
Mm,
then you could sell your album to your fans or your video album.
okay.
And you could promote yourself with clips of videos on my app. Now, name one app you can do all that in one.
I don't know. I'm not familiar enough. I guess this,
The
if
outlet
you've done
app
the
is the
research
only
and yeah,
one. If
okay.
you can't think of one, that lets you know it's not popular enough for artists to do direct sales
Yeah. So
socially.
you've got to get this out there. Get as many people using it as possible. And by the way, I would have said
And
if you did have a direct competitor, it would just mean that you still have to do the same thing. It doesn't mean that they get to keep the entire market. Like there's Apple, like there's
right,
Samsung, right? So it's like you know, like they still. So your job now is to really just get as many people using it as possible. How are you going to do that? So you need money, right? You need
yeah,
money and a plan to get users. So if we're looking at money, let's look at money first and then the plan, because the plan could be 100 different things. Money is you're kind of siloed into just a few different options. But the plan, you could go down the influencer marketing road. You could be going to an event where you get to talk to a whole bunch of entertainers at one time and just one to many, get as many people on the app as possible. You can get other people to do that for you who have their own audiences. I keep taking my mind to the influencer marketing world, because essentially that's what you're doing. You're
yes,
you're kind of within that lane, so you might as well tap that market too, right? Um,
yes.
and by the way, I can't not say it, because this is really where I have to do a shameless plug, because I actually built my own. Can you see this on the screen? This is my
Yeah.
software, DistroList.app. I want to shamelessly plug and you know what? I'll do you a favor. We could bring your one onto the screen in a second too. I'll be happy to show it. But because I'm doing this and this feels a bit cheap, but but I did build an app. It is an influencer marketing app, and we have over 250 million influencers across Instagram, YouTube, and TikTok on this app. So if you are looking for influencers out there, but the thing is, I say this, and this is really where I'm negative selling my own thing, right? Like,
Mhm.
and I'll put this away, because people, they go to the app and, wow, I can find all these influencers and stuff. These people, look at their audience. It's the perfect audience for me. They're gonna, if I can get them to sell my thing, they've got the perfect buyers. My ideal buyers are in their audience. They're going to be, and they have the trust and the faith with this influencer that we can now leverage, and we can get access to them. It's like whispering in someone else's ear, and they're going to pull us. We're going to get all this money. But the trouble is just getting those influencers on board in the first place. Like, you need to do a certain level of outreach. There's DMing and and even DMing doesn't work now because of the way they've managed those inboxes. If you've ever DM'd anyone who has a public account, they never see that message for the most part, because it goes into like a requested message. Like, not everyone's going through all those, especially if they're popular. So, and there's other things too, like popularity tends to go, it's like hand in hand with like how valuable an influencer is. Like, yes, popularity is important, but engagement is important. And then do they have the authority to promote your sales message to their audience? Like, like you mentioned OnlyFans out there, like you might have someone that has 1 million followers, but as soon as that person starts talking about an app like yours, maybe that message really isn't getting across to the audience, because that's not really what they're there for. So just having a lot of numbers, having a lot of people in your audience isn't always the best thing, right? So I've noticed that when I built my app, that was the biggest challenge that people had. It's like they went in and they had this tool and they were looking, and that's why I can kind of I can share the sentiment of like the pain points with software, because you've built it, it works, but then you realize people actually have to do stuff with it, right? And then that becomes a little bit like too much work for some people, and then they kind of back out of it.
Well, too, the thing I learned with apps or anything, especially when you're a small company, with the users are dealing with habits. So that's the main thing, is what they're used to. Just like artists, I try to get them to understand your music is a product.
Right.
And that's a habit that they're not used to.
Yeah.
They're not used to selling their product. They're used to chasing fans and hoping that they just listen to them and like them.
Yeah.
And then they'll say, I'll monetize in other ways.
Yeah.
So what I created is the opposite. So I understand now, I'm dealing with habits now to get artists to understand you got to sell your product. I know there's nowhere to do it, because streaming is not selling your product. That's why streaming doesn't work.
Okay. So let's say to sell this thing, to get this thing sold, to get those users using it, right?
Yes.
So how much money do you need? So let's say you just needed 100 grand, or do you need 500 grand, or do you need 1 million? Like, how much do you think you need? Because that kind
I'd
of
say
determines
about
where you get money
500
from.
grand.
500 grand and a strategic partner. Okay.
Yeah.
So look, the first thing I would say to do is try and get the money through a medium that you can control entirely, like the banks. I think at this stage, because how many users do you have?
Well, downloads, I have over 100 downloads, and that's with customers and artists. But artists, probably, I haven't looked in a while, but it's probably like 20, 30.
About 20 artists. So how do we make that 2,000, right? Like getting that to 1,000 or 2,000 artists that are actively using it. That, I think, is where you'll have like that. It's like a magic number, getting 1,000 users, right?
Yes.
If you can get to 1,000, like, how much money do you really need to get to 1,000? Like, how many influencers could you rope in at what price to promote that for you? I mean, this is where we come down to it. Like, if you have, for instance, good credit, you don't need to give up anything of your company. And this is what I would implore you to do, is get access to some level of credit so that you can control it. It's revolving credit. And you're not giving up any of your company, but you can get to the people that you want to get to. So that's influencers through to an audience that could be perfect users for your app. And so, a couple of $100 here and there for some shout outs to get on some new users. It's free to access, right? It's free to join your app.
Yes.
Am I correct in saying that? Okay. So there's a strong possibility that the right people who have, with the right voice, with the audience that's essentially, there's a level of trust, faith, that they what's the phrase, they know, like, and trust them. And they say, jump on this app because you'll be able to hear my music and you'll also be able to jump on and you'll be able to hear it for free. If you can have maybe 100 conversations, 100 different artists, and they can get 10 people on each, I think you're in a good space, right? 100 calls you could
Yes.
do in a week, and if they could just get 10 people in there, many thousands in their audience into your app, you're going to be laughing. You've now got yourself 1,000, and it will be at that point then I would then go to ask investors to raise money, but to raise money from
Yes.
investors and get capital from people, because then they can't just kind of steamroll you. They have to come in and be careful. And it's like, okay, not only does this software, like I could replicate software, like Facebook as a website. I remember talking to a developer, like that could be replicated instantly, not instantly, but like very quickly. They could make a carbon copy knockoff of the same app. Like they can make it look the same.
You said a Facebook?
Like a Facebook, like it's like a
Yeah.
Facebook or an Instagram. The app itself doesn't actually, I'm sure there's a boatload of complexity to it, but what these developers I've spoken to say, well, like getting it to work, getting to create something that looks just like that, feel just like that, work kind of like just like that, it's not actually that difficult. Where those guys are winning, obviously there's like tip of the iceberg, right? There's a billion things underneath the iceberg, but the main thing is that they have the users. And so if you have
But
users,
you know to go back to, like I was telling you before, creating another Facebook could be so difficult for the public to jump on is because they're used to the habit of Facebook.
but TikTok did it. I mean, if you're big enough and you got enough money behind
Well,
you,
it was a different format than Facebook, though.
yeah. But it's still like a platform, social media. It's like pulling the eyes out of Instagram, pulling the
Well,
eyes from
oh,
Snapchat, you know?
I'll explain it like this. Facebook is for family. Instagram is for influencers. TikTok was more for entertainment. That's why
Right.
it worked. It was short form videos. The format is what people are into when it comes to the apps.
Yeah. Yeah.
It
Okay.
can't, if somebody created another Facebook, it'll be difficult to work because everybody's already used to Facebook and communicating with their family on Facebook.
Yeah. I mean, I can
You
see
could
why that
replicate
argument
something
would stick.
similar, but that's why Mark Zuckerberg bought Instagram, because it was easier to buy Instagram than try to replicate to try to change their habits.
Yeah. Okay.
Because that's what I noticed as I'm talking to artists. They are more talking to me about their habits than their career.
Hmm.
And I'm
Okay.
like, okay, this is a mindset that we're dealing with.
Yeah.
So
All
that's the
right.
only reason I cut you off, just to explain that, because that's something I analyzed.
Yeah.
Yeah, I looked at Facebook and everything, but I'm like, okay, this is why I see they using these apps. It's just habit.
Right. But can you create that same habit with your app? Like that's
Yes,
the thing. How sticky can you make yours? Obviously, people are getting paid through your app. That's obviously a big one, because if they're able to go and use the outlet and get money from it, then you're in a good place, right?
yes,
And if you've got 1,000 people like dedicated, like they're living off this thing, that's when you're really in the money, right? That's why like
yes,
websites like Fiverr, what's the other one? Upwork, freelancer.com, like those websites, when I first saw them, I'm like, okay, this is a cool idea. Maybe I could jump on this and make some extra money on the side when I was working. But then I start to, over time, you start to realize that people's entire livelihood is dependent on this platform. And so they are really dedicating time and energy into learning how to navigate the platform properly, how to properly advertise themselves within the app itself, how to promote it outside of the app's environment entirely. They're
yes,
really taking the time to double down and understand to get the most out of it, right? So that they can make the most money through it. And of course, those apps, the more people do that, it's just like a cyclical effect. It's like you've got more money now flowing through the app, and of course the app is becoming more profitable as a result. And of course, the
yes,
more profitable it is, the more investment money it's going to seek. I mean, that's kind of like where you could sit, really, because you could very quickly transition from your people, as in your investors, your accredited angel investors, to institutions very quickly. Because when it
hmm,
comes to apps that kind of meet this critical mass, and they kind of get to a point like 1,000 or 10,000 or 100,000 users, and it's based on transactions. So it's like really low friction to get people into the app. And then once they're there, they're stuck in it because now this is how they're paying their friggin' phone bills and how they're paying their rent and that kind of stuff. So
Right.
now they're stuck in that environment and they don't really want to jump ship, because if they do, then now they have to, are they going to leave behind a whole bunch of users that were expecting to see their next album on the app, right? So like you want to, but to get to that point, that critical stage is well, you got to get users on, right? So you need some money. So but if you can get there, then I think, yes, institutional VC private equity will come in and get involved, because it will just be something to pick up. It's a treasure trove that can be expanded and scaled, because software can scale. So yeah, man, I would
Yes.
say, like, if you, my takeaway at this stage is, yeah, you can launch a convertible note. You can go for a safe note, some kind of business IOU, which is essentially what those are, to raise money from individual angel investors.
Mhm.
That will work for you. But if your credit's in a good place, go for credit, because you're spending money on things that credit cards can quite comfortably pay for, like 50, 100
Okay.
grand, 150K. You can pay influencers because people accept, everyone's got like a Stripe account now. It's a Square, like people are getting paid like that. So you can effectively scale your company. You can get to those 1,000 users with just a credit card alone. And I would do that personally before taking on, money from, a person who has a couple of $100,000 in deep pockets, and you're looking for a strategic partner. You kind of want to position yourself in the most opportune strategic position, right? Where you want help, they know you want help, but you're not in the water without a paddle either. Like, you have a user base, like you have an app
Mhm.
that is generating money for, not just for you, but for other people. That's what makes it super attractive, right? It's like, what are
Yes.
all the different profit centers that exist there? So yeah, I think that's cool. I think that would be a direction for you to take. What do you think?
No, I'm glad for your advice. That's why I reached out to you, because I
Yeah, well,
wanted to hear your advice on what'll be the best way to just approach growing the app
yeah. I mean, if it
and
was
getting
me,
that insight.
yeah, if it was me, that's how I'm doing it with Distro List, the software that I've got. We built that. I priced it real low, $1. Like, you've gone free. You don't need to charge people on the entry. I actually tried to make mine free, but I don't know if you've had this problem. I got a lot of robots going into my app,
Mm.
like bots, essentially, like username login, just logging in. So by actually putting $1 a month um, paywall on it, people have to put their credit card details. So that kind of cuts out the most part, the bots out there. So yeah, people can come in, and we actually have real people in there now. But the question is like, how much money do I dedicate on growing it? And so yeah, all I've literally done is taken one of those credit cards that have a really good reward structure, a point system, and I'm just letting
Mhm.
that run ads so that I'm accumulating really good points as I'm going. But it's like slowly just dripping in people into the app, and people are giving us some feedback. It's still an expense, like it's not profitable at this point, but it's like it's what's necessary to just get the user base up. Because I know that when the user base gets to 1,000, even if it's cost me like 100,000 to get to 1,000,
Right.
the reality is I can then go to any investor and say, I've got 1,000 users here. They're all paying $1. We're about to increase the number to $97 a month. And a lot of these users are actually using this every day. They're getting their analytics from this thing, their influencers in here. They're already built their lists in here. So when we do that, we're probably going to expect to keep around 50% of them. But 50% times, 50 is like 500 times $97 a month. That's what we're making per month. Let's times that by a year. Now times that by 3 or 4 years. And that's kind of, we've got a valuation on the company. Mr. Investor, do you want to buy some shares? Because we want to
Right.
take it from 1,000 to like a 10,000 or 100,000 limit. And so that's how we would, that's essentially my plan with that. It's kind of like having that process in mind to like know how I can get access to more money. And that's what people, I think that's why I'm doing this. I want people to get that kind of mindset. There's lots of different ways to skin a cat, right? There's like, how to slice this cake, right? But that's a way that you can kind of see the next steps. And this is not your primary business plan. Your primary business plan is to build a software that's really good and useful, but you got to have this sidecar, this parallel business plan. That's how to access more money. And it's really just, it's it is like a separate business plan to the main business plan almost. Does that make sense?
Yeah. No, it makes complete sense.
Cool.
And it's kind of the same challenges I deal with that you deal with you say startups that don't understand the proper way to just go into a business, raise money,
Yeah.
and just, you know, that mindset of the understanding how to build and scale what you're trying to do.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, let me do this because I'm going to share with you a part. I was actually, I don't know if you caught it when you jumped on. I was going through this doodle that I had
Oh,
created.
okay.
Can you see this? Everyone can see this too. Like I was taking people through this process
Yes.
here, which is something I created a little while ago, um, to try and help people understand. Let's see if I can actually. Can I scroll in on the Zoom in or not? Let's see. Let's see. Hang on. I'm going to pull it off the screen. It's not letting me zoom in or out. So let me remove it. Let me close. I'm going to close that screen. I'm going to bring it back. And here we go. Okay. Do you see this here? You can see it. So you're back. All right. So I want to make sure. So
Yes.
I was basically
Yes.
showing people how you can go ahead and raise money for like buying real estate or buying another business. Like you'd find the real estate first, which is this, or let's say it's a business, and then that you want to buy, or it's your own business that you want to create. You want to raise money for, right? I want to jump past these steps here, which is basically getting a price on the property and figuring out how you want to treat it as far as an investment option is concerned. Do you want to go for an early exit? Do you want to develop it as an early exit option, or do you want to go for a longer term thing? And then once you've done that, you want to get an LOI with a seller. That really pertains to like a developer situation. In your situation, this is where you essentially you've created the MVP. So in this developer style, this is where I would have said like, okay, go ahead and get a contractor to price up the refurbishment that you're going to use, and go find yourself an architect to kind of make some really cool visuals of like what this thing could be. Like are you going to turn this like a piece of dead land into like this 10-story apartment complex, right? So you get an architect to kind of make that happen. So you want to give investors a visual. Equally, when it comes to your business, the outlet, the app itself, is where you want to take that app and kind of showcase it. This is the same equivalent. You want to create something that is attractive to an investor. So you want to have some good rendering done, and because you have an app and you have a web page for your app, this is kind of you done. So then now you want to take into consideration how much you're going to make on what's in it for the investors and what's in it for you. So with a real estate deal, you're thinking, well, we can make money from an acquisition fee. There's the development estimate in there. There's the preferred return for the investors. There's the investor ROI in general. Then there's the manager ROI. So me, if we bought the property with investor money, then there's the exit options and how much money we make from those, and so on and so forth. That's like when it comes to real estate. And with your business, it's kind of similar in the sense that what you're saying is, okay, so here's the ROI that I'm going to give people if they give me, let's say we're looking for $1 million or $500,000. I'm willing to give a 10% return to my investors or my angel partners. This is how much they're going to get. This is 12%. They're going to get it paid yearly or quarterly distributions, or they're going to wait till the end of their note, which is like maybe it's a 2-year note or a 3-year note or a 1-year note. This is the length of time the loan is active for. And okay, so I hope people are tracking. Like, are you tracking? Like, even though this is like the structuring a real estate deal, I'm kind of showing you how it kind of works for a business too. Like you're creating this business IOU to the investor. You're structuring it. You're making it look good to the investor. So it's putting together the site and putting together the offer. And then this is where I was talking about a convertible note, right? Or a safe note in your case. Joey, but in the case of like real estate, this is where you want to start, not just real estate. Or Joey, you could do this too. Like you could basically set up what's called a private placement, because the process is the same. Whether you're buying real estate, whether you're buying, raising money to buy a business, or raising money for your own business, and you don't want to go, and you want to go beyond like a convertible note. You want something that the investors can feel a bit more warm and fuzzy about, right? So we're talking about a registered fund that sits on the SEC's EDGAR database, that is basically showing the world and all the investors that you are abiding by the rules of the SEC, and this is a fund, and it has all this regulation tied to it, right? So you are essentially a pro in this position. And so this is where you could do it, like, and it would cost you about 5 to 15,000, depending on what kind of securities and private placement lawyer you use. But you're going to need them to create what's called an operating agreement, your Reg D 506C, which is the private placement itself, to be able to legally go out there and shake a tin cup asking for money. Your Regulation S Section 5, if you're looking to get money from offshore into this opportunity that you're creating to be able to buy the business or the real estate. Your subscription agreement, and your Form 1D. That was your EDGAR listing right there. So that's like your SEC. There's a few more documents too, but your SEC legal stuff is taken care of with those, right? That's going to make you compliant with the SEC. But then in the case of real estate, or in the case of like buying a business, so with real estate, you'd have to get a real estate attorney who's very familiar with the area and can put together like the structure of the real estate. So if you're buying this apartment complex or storage unit or office or hotel, you'd essentially be looking for an attorney that will put together the operating agreement, the management agreement, the LLC agreement, and then there's some other things too, like how are you going to chop up the property? Like how are you going to allow investors to come in at like different levels? If some investors are coming in at 50,000, other investors are coming in at 150,000 or 1.5 million, like how are you going to distribute the value of the asset and its money it makes to those people, right? So you're going to have a way to chop it up, kind of like when you buy a company, you can buy a certain amount of shares for a certain price. I can buy $100 of shares and have this many, or I can buy $1 million of shares and get this many, right? It's like, how do you do that with real estate? So yeah, you can sell shares. You can chop the land up with title deeds and that kind of stuff. Tenants in common structures, Delaware statutory trust, and a few different other ways. But the point is that your real estate attorney will actually put that together for you. So in your case, it would be a securities and private placement lawyer for a business. They would essentially say, you wouldn't need the real estate, but you need a private placement attorney who's going to structure the business accordingly. Like maybe you're starting off as an LLC, but you need to reposition as a C Corp. Why? Because you need to allocate 1 million shares or 10 million shares on the thing so that you can sell a whole bunch of shares off in a couple of years once your note becomes or hits maturity. So that's essentially the paperwork that you need to legally go out there and really start raising a lot of money. People don't always recognize that these are the steps to be taken. Like how far down the rabbit hole do you want to go? Initially it's like, oh, I've seen Shark Tank, I want to get some angel investors. Yeah, okay, you can get a couple of partners like that, strategic partners. But like, how do you really raise money going forward? Like, what are people talking about when they're talking about VC funds? Well, I could set up a fund today. A fund is just a bank account, by the way. It's an empty bank account, right? It's like, you see how there's a little image right here. It's a bank account, which is like a bucket with a bunch of contracts around it that basically make it a fund. That's essentially your LLC or your bucket of your empty bucket of money that can be filled up with capital from other people. And there's some rules, and it's just the rules that govern how money gets dropped into that bucket. But that's essentially a fund. You can call that a VC fund. You can call that a private equity fund. You can call that a hedge fund. You can call that whatever you want. Okay, it's a bucket of money that gets deployed against the stuff that people agreed to. Right? They agreed the money to be put into your business. So basically it's an equity fund. They agreed for the money to go trading on this. It's a hedge fund. They agreed for the funds to be deploying its capital somewhere else. And so it's a VC fund, whatever the case is. You can give it the tagline, but the framework is the same. You know what I mean? It's a bank account with a bunch of contracts that says what you can and can't do with it. And then once you've got that set up, because remember, this is like building that app you just talked about, right? This is essentially just putting the thing together. but then you still got to get the money in there, right? It's like selling. It's like you getting the app. You've spent all this time and money building the software. It's like, how do I sell and get users, right? Well, I need money. Well, it's like, how do I get investors to put their money into this bank account? Well, God, I need money here too. Oh, you can use friends and family and your personal network to get investors in. It's the same thing you could say about the front end of your business with the sales platform itself, the software itself. It's like, yes, you could go friends and family, you could go door to door, you could go club to club, place to place, meet as many entertainers and people in the arts as you can to get involved slowly. It's the same deal. It's like you're getting one customer at a time. It's drips and drabs. Same deal with investors. Once you've got this empty bucket, you want to go find those investors, you can start LinkedIn messaging them or reaching out by email messaging. Like there's things that you can do to speed up or even unfortunately like slow down the process, and you're back in the same spot. Because make no mistake, raising money is a business of itself, in and of itself, right? We don't
In
tend to hear
itself,
that.
yeah, it is. So,
Yeah, we
one
don't
quick
tend to
question.
hear it.
Now, what's the difference in this and crowdfunding? Like, how does crowdfunding work?
So crowdfunding is really interesting because this is a Reg D 506C, which is what I've been referring to here. A crowdfunding was Reg CF, or regulation for regulation for the crowdfunding framework, or it's different. You have two different types of crowdfunding. You have the Reg CF, which is what everyone kind of sees online right now, like when they go to like Start Engine, that kind of thing. If you go startengine.com, or if you go to WeFunder or something like that, it's going to be your Reg CF opportunities a lot of the time on there. But you'll also have a bunch of Regulation A, Reg A, as it's referred to. Reg A is a bigger kind of crowdfunded fund, where you can go up to like a couple of billion. So crowdfunding in and of itself, you can only raise like 1.2, 1.5 mil, something like that. I can't remember the exact figure now. So you can raise it from anybody. So anyone can invest. Like they can buy $100, $200, $500, $1,000 here. So they can kind of invest at any level. And also, and you can kind of set the minimum investment, but it's also, they don't have to be accredited. Accredited is a definition for a certain like class of investor, almost what the SEC defines as someone who can take the risk, who can bear the risk of an investment, right? So an accredited investor is someone who earns $200,000 per year for the last 2 years, or with a spouse, $300,000 per year for the last 2 years, or they have $1 million in assets outside of their personal residence. Okay, so that qualifies them as an accredited investor. So the question is like, how do you get them? Like, well, so you asked the question was, what's the difference between a crowdfunding thing? Well, a crowdfunding entity, you don't need accredited investors. It could be anybody. It could be anyone you know, right? You can send that link out. But here's the trouble. And by the way, to get to a Regulation A, which is like a way bigger type of crowdfund, it's like a mini IPO actually, where you can take money kind of from anybody. It costs around $150-something thousand to get it set up, and it's not like a one-time fee either. I say that as a ballpark figure because that's what my lawyers that I've used in the past have told me. Oh, you're going to need around $150K for that. I'm like, what fees?
Wow.
The lawyer fees. Like you basically put this thing together, you submit it to the SEC, they make comments on it, they send it back. Your lawyer has to read it, make comments itself, check with you. Is this what you want? Can you move this around that? Yes, maybe, I don't know. Let's think about it. Can you do some research on it? All of that's billable hours, right? So back and forth and back and forth and back. And before you know it, you're 150K in the hole. So
Wow.
So it's not a lot of money if you're expecting 50 million, 20 to 50 million coming through, but it does pay to play, right? It costs. Don't forget, Wall Street built its entire reputation, namesake, everything on this model, raising money, right? Like there's an entire industry for this. There's so many different ways to get involved with this business, the business of raising money. Like, make no mistake, it is a business, right?
It is.
Yeah, that's why when people say, "Oh, I'm just going to go find an investor," and they get lucky, lucky you got yourself an investor because you knew somebody, you knew somebody that you were in the right situation. But if you're not in the right situation, you got to go and get them, just like you got to go and get customers. and it's a business. There's a process to it, and it's not easy because everyone wants to do it. Yet and because of that, because everyone wants the money, everyone wants money.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? Ultimately, like that's what you're asking for. You're asking for money. So, it's like, so they're in the business of selling money, and so people know how to put a price tag on it. So bear that in mind. But yeah, but once you've
So to
go
promote
ahead.
a product, you say to promote a basic product in the United States. How much do you think that'll cost?
Oh, it's like how long is a piece of string, man? Like that's a question I couldn't answer you. It's like I don't know. It's like it costs a lot of money. It depends on the product. It depends on the character behind the business. It depends on a whole multitude of factors, man.
And I was
Um,
only asking that because when people ask, okay, how much money do you need for promotion for
I
your
mean,
product?
to be
It's
honest,
like, how do you estimate that?
I mean, if you're asking me if it was my business, I wouldn't. I would say $100,000 is probably a good place to be because it
To
allows you to make
start.
a few. It allows you to make a few mistakes. You can screw up here and there. Like so, you could start an advertising campaign. You could find 10 influencers. 3 of them were a waste of money. 5 of them were a waste of money. Right.
Right.
5 of them stole the money and didn't do the post that you wanted to do. Right. So that could be you could make some mistake because you as a business owner you're gonna fall flat on your face a lot of times. I've fallen flat plenty. I'm not the most. I wouldn't say I'm like the most successful by no means. I have made so many mistakes. All I know is that you got to. Well, there's a saying you got to fail forward, right? But to do that in
Mhm.
business, you need to have some level of safety net, right? So you need a cushion, a financial cushion. Like you spend 10 grand on ads and they didn't get you anywhere, so you need another 10 grand for a different set of ads to a different audience. But if you don't have the second batch of 10 grand available, you're in the water without a paddle. You're FUCK. You don't want to be in that. You want to be in a position where you can recover. And if you cannot recover, that's a bad spot. So,
Exactly.
um, so yeah. But you know what? Like that actually is a good question because that brings you back to like the crowdfunding. Like how much? Do you know what happens when you go on crowdfunding sites and you see those websites? Let's say you pay the little fee to get set up. You look at the little buzz, the one liner. We don't take fees on the money that you on monies raised, or no, we don't. There's no setup fee. We only take a fee on monies raised, so it's pay on performance. And people get like, oh, that's great. I don't have to pay anything until money comes in, right? But
Mm-hmm.
the truth is that's just to lure you in and get you in there. The reality
Mm.
is like what it is like they end up. You have to once you've. It's like a market. You ever gone to an eBay marketplace or a Facebook market? You post the
No.
opportunity, right? Okay, what marketplace like Amazon, not Amazon, I should say. Let's have you ever had to sell something online?
Yes.
Like it's like something like eBay or Facebook Marketplace or
Girl, I
what else?
saw something on Craigslist before.
Craigslist is another example. Yeah. So when you listed on Craigslist, um, now Craigslist, you may have got lucky with that because people used to just troll that site. But when you list on there and you just go for the free option, you spend your time getting pictures, right? Take pictures of everything and you put it on. You fill out the description of what it is, you put it on, and you're like, okay, it's listed. But then you have like other options. Like, do you want to boost the promotion? Do you want to pay this much money to have this like a featured promotion, right? So it sits up top and people
Mm-hmm.
for like a couple of days, right? It's the same deal with the crowdfunding sites. So once you've done that and you've put your details in on your project and your business and you're looking to raise money and you've paid the money with the lawyers to get your reg cf set up and you again it's spending, right? Then you're thinking, okay, now it's on the platform, it's on the crowdfunding platform, so I'm going to get seen and people are going to throw money at me. It's not the case. At that point, you'll learn a hard lesson, which is where you're not going to get much attention at all, and you're going to call
Right.
the regular. You're going to call the platform, and you're going to say, "Well, what's happening? How am I going to get this million five that you said I could get from this?" And he goes, "Oh, you got to promote it, Joey. That's what you've got to do. You got to promote it." And you say, "Well, how am I going to do that?" Well, this page where you can run ads to it, or we have an email list. You can spend $5,000 a day with us, and we'll email our email list. And then suddenly you've got this menu of options of other things that you got to pay for. And so that's a lot of
Right.
people, they get stuck
So is
right
that
there.
why most people go on like promotional tours when they crowdfund.
That's right. They have to,
Okay.
because they got to drive attention into the fund that they've created, you know? And guess what? The crowdfunding platform gets to eat that 7% or whatever it is that
Wow.
they're charging, whatever it is that they're taking off you, right? But I mean, that's still pretty low. That's nice. I mean, 7% is a good number. Like if you start going through private placements and you start working with placement agents and investment salespeople out there to know investors out there, those guys are guys and gals are charging anywhere between 10 and even 20% or even more in some
Yeah.
cases. Most
Mhm.
more is definitely less, more like 10 to 15 to sometimes 20%. It's a lot of money that could be made in that business, like as a
Yeah.
business owners are in need of the capital. They want 100 grand and they're willing to pay 15k to get the cash in the house, right? Because they can just, if I just had the money, I'd be able to do the thing. That's the
Right.
mindset of the owner, right? The owner thinks like that. So the platforms know that too, right? The crowdfunding platform knows that. The lawyers know that. Everybody in the middle knows that. Like if you just that, because they know that's where your mind is, all right? And the
Yeah.
investors, their mind is, well, hang on, I want to make sure that my money's safe. And if I do drop it with you, that I know I can come back a week later. If I give you $5, I'm going to get $10 back, or at least worst case scenario, I get the $5 I put in back, right? So
Hmm.
that's what the investor wants. They don't want to lose their money. They've been working so hard for it. So yeah.
So it's just better to go to venture capitalist route.
Is it better to go the venture capitalist route?
Yeah.
No, I wouldn't say it's better. I would just say that's an option because a venture
Okay.
capital is a
It's
business.
just what works for you. I get what you're saying. I get what
Well,
you're
look,
saying.
see this. Remember
It,
this bucket here.
yeah.
A VC fund is a bucket of money that they put together, and they're now looking for places to deploy that capital. When you're dealing with a VC fund where they're managing a lot of money, let me just move this off the screen. Where they're managing a lot of money, what you're
Hmm.
going to find is that, well, put this, the more money that's in a bucket, eventually what's going to happen is you're going to have a fund manager, and that fund manager has to maintain a level of trust with everybody that's there, right? So
Yes.
they don't want to mess up and lose the money. So what they say to all their investors is, we're going to invest through, along this particular thesis. We're gonna invest along this specific criteria. We're not going to deviate. We're only going to invest in tech companies, SaaS products that have a minimum of 1,000 users, that can scale to this level within a year, that we believe, and that have this, and a few other things. And they'll have such a very narrow criteria that you won't be able to navigate. Like if you don't fit into that criteria, you're not going to get looked at. And also, we're not looking for anyone that's looking at less than 20 million. And by the way, that's not just a number that you can throw out and say, oh, well, okay, I'll take 20
Hmm.
million. No, you've got to be valued as such. You have to have a full business plan, pro forma, with your full financial models available for them to be able to scrutinize. And it's going to go through like several different rounds of like almost like interviewing, right? They're going to view you as a character behind the business. They're going to want to know what the business is itself, who owns the assets, what the code is, where, can it be replicated? They're going to look at absolutely everything. And so if you do just so happen to fit the criteria, okay, then yeah, they can totally dump a whole bunch of money on your business and you'll be flying. But you also have to remember you've got yourself a business partner, because not only will they just deploy capital, they're also going to make
Hmm.
sure that they don't lose that capital. And the way that they do that is they'll take some level of control. Of course, they're going to get equity, but they're going to have secondary contracts to take a lot more control over your business, because if you, as the captain of the ship, start going the wrong direction or in a direction that they don't like, that is too risky, and they're like, listen, now we don't care anymore about you, because they don't care about your business. They're
Right.
saying, we don't really care about your business. We just need the $5 that we put in to come back. And if the waters are getting rocky, right? If we're getting into some turbulence here, then we want to just safeguard what we put in, so we can tell our investors we didn't screw up,
Right.
right? So they're going to want to pull out, and they're going to scalp your company to do so. right? They'll just cut off the fat. I mean, it happens in VC, it happens in private equity companies all the time. They're trying to make a couple moves. Something happens, it doesn't work so well, and then boom, they have to cancel everything, and it gets pulled out. The entrepreneur who thought they were who are flying high suddenly gets pulled out. The rug gets pulled out from under their feet, and then it's game over. But yeah,
And that's why
really,
I was telling you, I want someone who understands me, I understand them, and they understand this industry.
yeah.
Because I know it's about money, and it's about making the money back.
Yeah, it is. I mean, I always say, make no mistake. It's raising money is a business in and of itself.
It
I think
is.
you got it. All right, Jerry. Well, thank you very much for your time. I appreciate you coming on and spending this time with me, sharing your business. And I do believe I forgot to showcase the outlet app. Let me bring this to the screen now because I got to do that because we spoke about it.
Thank you.
We've described it. I feel like it
And
is
the website is theoutletapp.com.
theoutletapp.com. Okay, let me bring that up
Yeah.
here. Yeah, here we go. There you go. The outlet. The app looks sweet. It's clean looking. Yeah, man.
Yes.
It's a good looking piece of kit. I wish you all the success.
Sales over streams.
That's it. All right, my man. Very good to have you on. I've got our next guest, Judson. So I'll speak to you soon, buddy.
All right. Thank you.
Hello, Judson. Pleasure.
Hey, good morning. I guess it's afternoon now already. How are you today?
Yeah, it's definitely later on in the evening over here. It's just gone past 6 in the UK, but my business was on the East Coast, so it's where all my staff are at. So I work East Coast hours. So yeah, nice to meet you.
Nice to be here. Thanks for having me.
Awesome. Can you tell us a bit about your business and potentially what your funding goals are? Curious to know.
Sure.
I saw a little memo to do with like law enforcement, right?
It is.
Let's hear it.
So I'm going to have to go a little bit back before I get to that point, but I spent a lifetime at Dell and Dell Computers. And one of the things that I was there for was escalations management. In case something happened that was outside of policy procedures, they called us. There were any number of different things. So basically call me an incident manager, where we had to jump in and fix something. Now, maybe not fix, but we had to grab all the resources, had to work out with logistics. We got the weirdest cases ever. Like, how are we going to repopulate a data center after Hurricane Katrina came through? And, there's 6 foot of salt water in there, etc. So when the dust up in Ferguson, Missouri happened, with Officer Darren Wilson and Michael Brown. And Michael Brown, unfortunately, was shot and killed in that altercation. The thing that kept resonating through my mind is, how come they're not providing any updates? At Dell, I had to provide an update every 4 hours. If we knew something, if we didn't know something, if we had went down a blind path and couldn't find anything, we still had to tell everyone every 4 hours where we were at. Problem was, the town of Ferguson burned because of protests for 3 weeks. There was never anything coming out in the news. And I had 3 weeks of insomnia because there was an itch in the back of my head saying this isn't right. There should be something. As a part-time gunsmith and as a tactical trainer as well, I thought, there's got to be documentation out there. There's got to be some program that allows police to pull their officers' training, to say, hey, our officer worked yes or no within guidelines, or yes or no had the correct amount of training, or yes or no the gun had been looked at to make sure it was functioning in the last several months. There was nothing like that out there. So I decided it was time to build my own. And so what we built is there's several of us in the project. We actually built an asset management program so that we can track the firearms from cradle to grave, trouble ticketing, preventative maintenance schedules. Like we all know, we have that little sticker up in the corner of our car window that says when we're supposed to get our oil changed. Every mechanical device has something similar. So do firearms. People just don't take care of it. They don't understand that. Our program does that as well. Every time an officer goes to training and puts X number of rounds through, it goes in and automatically decrements so that that preventative maintenance schedule is ready to go. So every morning when the officers get on station ready to go to shift, they're going to have our software as a service, cloud-based software they'll either go to their cell phone, they'll go to their laptop, they'll go to iPad or whatever they have issued by the agency. They'll be able to put in, how much ammo they're taking out, etc., how many rounds they have with them. It's going to be taking pictures of them, so we'll have chain of custody, so we know where that gun actually is. None of this, hey, I'm running late, can you go ahead and sign in for me? No, because there's going to be a picture taken. And while I was talking to some of the officers, I was trying to, some of the officers in the local Oklahoma City metro area, I was trying to get their feedback, and they said, wow, if you're taking pictures of us, why don't you go into mental health screening questions too? Because a lot of us see really bad things and we don't have a lot of support. And I was like, you know what? Let's go ahead and do that. So you can take those pictures, line them up, and take those randomly generated questionnaires, send those over to the mental health pros who are assigned and dedicated to that agency. And if there's a problem, they've got whatever data they need to go back and talk to management. So the officers can be a little bit more free about talking about their feelings or emotions, or, hey, I saw something I just can't get past because it was pretty ugly. And it was like, yeah, absolutely. That's great. So we've added that in.
So is that part of the sequence? Like, so where does that come in? Like, so what I'm struggling with, is it a SaaS software that is kind of like an app that you track all this with? Or
Absolutely.
is this, okay.
Yep.
Okay. And so when does this questionnaire come into play? Like, is at the facility, but it's through the app? Or yeah, I'm just
each individual officer is going to have their cell phone and they're going to have their own login.
Okay.
And so whenever they log in the morning, the mileage on the car. Let me step back. We're going to start with firearms. We're going to go to duty vehicles. We're going to go to radios, breathalyzers, track all of those things too, so that we know when it's time for a new calibration. Same thing with body armor. Most people don't realize that body armor, the protective vests, actually have a born on and dead on date.
I did not know that.
It's probably still okay after the time, but you have no more legal liability coverage from the manufacturer because it's too old. That's going to be tracked as well. So all these things, along with the annual compliance that the officers have to take, there will be, I affectionately call them nasty grams, that will be going up through the chain. You're 90 days to the end of the year and you're still not within your compliance. You're 60 days to the end of the year, you're still not within your compliance. Well, as a part of your log in, log out, your beginning of shift, end of shift, if you're randomly selected, you get the mental health questions. And then if the mental health folks think you need a little bit of they can go in and tweak it a little bit so you get them less randomly, more pointedly to see if it was just a bad day or if there was something they need to actually talk with you about.
Okay. I'm not 100% familiar.
So it's not going to be going to every officer every day. It'll be kind of a randomly generated thing.
Okay. I'm not like, isn't there, and is this going to be something that's going to be outside of law enforcement too? Just general public as well? Or is it just, this is specifically for government?
It'll be just law enforcement for right now. Law enforcement and military.
Okay, because they need to track.
We do have a sister product. Once we get this launched, we do have a sister product for local gun shops and such. But yep.
Okay, I see. Yeah, because I was thinking, like, how do you deal
track
with the
their weapons?
aftermarket?
Track if they have an oops and there's a failure. When is it getting fixed?
Right.
Some agencies don't care if you have aftermarket parts. Some do. We need to track that. Yeah, I was
There's a
noticing that.
yeah, there's a bit of a lag between our conversations. It's
We'll
becoming a
also
little
be
bit
looking at
disjointed.
recalls sometimes. It might be on my end because of the weather.
It could be. If it is, look, if we get disconnected, we'll just reschedule. So, like, bear in mind, because this is really interesting. What you've got
Um,
here is something that can super scale because just how big
okay, okay,
how big the organization is. So, from a
yes,
business case, if you can get you're becoming a preferred vendor for this. Like if your software is essentially adopted by, and my own experience with this is
yes,
like in the UK we have the NHS, the National Health Service. That was like, you know, it's like a treasure trove. Just from a
yep,
business standpoint, if you put away, I mean, there's so many good things that reasons to have your kind of software in place because of the benefits. Like the safeguarding elements of both life and also the mental health of the officers themselves, that they're able to actually like they can check in like that in a very holistic way. But just from a business case, like in the case of the NHS, like if you can get them to pick up any contract and they're going to distribute it nationwide, you're instant billionaire almost, right? Like you're at least on the
right,
roadway. So it's a good place. And if software, it can scale, right? It's like you don't have to keep manufacturing something to meet the demand. Like once the software is up, to make sure you've got the servers that can handle the use case, the usage. So I mean that's what I love about software. I was talking about it earlier. Like software is great because once you've built it and if people are using it and you've made it very sticky, especially if you're tying it to some kind of a government issue contract, you've got yourself a good business there. And so I love the idea. I love the premise. It's a good idea, man.
Well, and something else that goes along with that, I'm very passionate about helping our first responders.
Mm.
And the nice thing about this is we'll have more data than anyone else has, so we can help fund that research. Maybe there's an AI machine learning thread there where we can say X plus Y plus Z equals this is a better treatment path. We just don't have that
Yeah.
data because we have individual disparate professionals looking at this. This would be great to be able to have everybody have the same data to see what the best treatment plan is for them. Let's get to them before it's a problem.
Mm. And like you can see certain things like because it's tracking usage, it's tracking bullets purchased, bullets not purchased, but bullets used or requested. What's the terminology? Um,
Issued.
Issued, bullets issued, bullets versus bullets used. When certain bullets are being, I don't know how it works. Are they getting more bullets at certain times when they're concerned about certain things happening politically or geographically in an area?
There have
Like
been, yes.
and so if you have all of this data and you do use AI to say make sense of this, right? Um, can you find any commonalities? Are there any common denominators here? And how does this tie into certain like news items that exist out there? I mean, that's just an example of where you could potentially go with this. So you wouldn't want to use like a GPT because it's open. You want to have it like something
Right.
that's certainly secure because that data could mean a lot of different things to a lot of different people. But definitely there's a hell of a lot of information there that could be derived because it's people's usage patterns. It's what they're doing with them. And
Absolutely.
in a country where guns, I mean, I'm British, so we always, there's always an opinion here about like America and guns, and it's like, but equally, like I think there's arguments for and against, to be honest with you, but
Sure.
it's it's such a touchy subject sometimes with many people, and so being able to have a system like this that can really kind of track, like you say, cradle to grave, the weapons themselves, the bullets, the usage. Yeah, I think there's a lot of data there that could be used, probably in a way that you wouldn't want initially.
Well,
But
the nice thing about our software is it's hosted on, there's a new thing that came out several years ago. It's a government cybersecurity standard called FedRAMP. If you have a .gov email address or domain name, you're supposed to be on it somewhere down the path. Well, we're able to be hosted on the FedRAMP auditor for the United States government. So all of our data will be secure enough that we're on the auditors. If the auditors' stuff isn't secure enough, it's not on ours, it's on theirs. So it'll be firewalled away. But it's so secure that if FBI or Interpol wants it, they could pull with a court order, they can pull our data across without having to go through data scrubbing. Get to faster
Okay.
resolutions of bad guys.
Right. How far along the way are you with this?
We are pre-launch. We have gone as far as we can before we have our first customer.
Okay.
We are ready to go. Another cool thing about this, are you familiar with the Firestone tire Ford Explorer debacle from the 90s?
No, not the
That's
debacle.
2000s, I guess. Basically, Ford and Firestone were having the Firestone tires could be on any other Ford truck, didn't have a problem. When they put the Firestone tires on Ford truck or Ford Explorers, they ended up flipping over sometimes, tire failures, etc. No other tires would do that. It took a tremendous amount of data to figure out what was causing it. Our software will have that data if there's a particular manufacturer of ammunition that doesn't like a particular manufacturer of firearms. And because we don't have a quality control at a national basis like a JD Powers and Associates or a National Transportation Safety Board, we'll have this data that the manufacturers can purchase off of us. How well does their gun model A compare with competitor B's gun model C?
Okay.
So it's a huge big data modeling, data integrity, big data thing. We'll have enough data we can actually do some good with it. Hopefully make guns more safe, hopefully make our officers so that they know that they've gained the right support.
Yeah. And so you've really thought this through. I think you've spent a lot of time looking at this through a lot of different angles, clearly.
Yes. A lot
It's
of
not
late
like,
nights.
yeah, I can see that. Conversations, or yeah, like just going through it, figuring it out, kind of just like mentally walking through the steps and seeing and looking at different stages through different lenses to see how it could be used, or how it
Right.
could be beneficial to the first responder. I do believe that's a fantastic idea. So the question is now, you said it was like your pre-revenue, but
Yep.
your pre-product, like where are you with the product or the software itself?
We've got a minimally viable product. We're ready to turn the lights back on. Our software environment that we are inside of, if you're familiar with Salesforce, where you build your application inside, we had something similar. Because COVID and some other things came up, we kind of turned the lights off on it, ready to turn that back on. Once we get in with our first customer, each one of these implementations is going to be specifically configured to their specific environment. So we're ready to turn the lights back on and get that first customer and get them all set, because we're going to have to hand tweak everything past that. Now, the great thing is the ingestion of data. As long as they've got their spreadsheet set up correctly, and we can help them, we've got a template of what needs to go where. We can ingest something like 10,000 lines of Excel every minute. So the ingestion of the raw data shouldn't be hard. It's going to be Officer Smith is Glock certified, whereas Officer Jones is SIG certified. That's where we're going to have to piece this stuff together. Because each one of them has their own different, Ford, Chevy, Dodge, Toyota. Each one's got their own preventive maintenance schedules.
Oh, I see. Okay. I see. So, and when you say first customer, to help the investors out there who are like potentially considering this, myself included, like what is the first? Is it like a precinct? Is it what is a customer in this case?
I'll give you an example. We went to the Missouri Sheriff's Association 2 years ago, and every one of the sheriffs that came by said, "Oh my gosh, this is great. Who's using it?" Well, we don't have anyone using it yet. So our first customer is going to kind of be a guinea pig as to how do we onboard. We know it works. We tested it with our things, of course, but we need to get that boys in blue, thin blue line endorsement from the first set. It could be anywhere from a precinct to a city to a state. The software behind it is infinitely configurable. It was used for nuclear power plant maintenance. So we're not even going to make the software actually sweat at this point. We're using so little of its capabilities. And the server farms that we've talked with the folks, basically when we get up to X capacity, they just turn on more servers for us and keep right on going.
Okay. So you can expand, the service base can expand with usage quite comfortably. You just need your
Yep.
first customer to come in. You can try and test it with them. That will serve as the test, like in any case, like any business case, the testimonial that will lead you to your next customer.
Right. Yep.
And your case study, proof of work. And also like what you can say you can do next if you get the next client, like you can kind of tailor it to the next person. I love it. I think it's good.
Right,
I think it's
right.
standard though. It's a standard business model, but you've really picked a market, an area that has high barriers to entry. It's not like anyone can kind of just choose your target market as the place to go make money. I mean, most of the time I talk about, oh, you've got to have a big enough TAM, like total addressable market. Like what you're saying
Right.
here is like we have one or two different designated clients, and we're going to make it or break it based on these
Yep.
two. Like
100%. And
Yeah.
one of the things that, again, I chose gunsmithing as a way to get as far away from technology as possible. I've got a very unique skill set. I'm sure there are other people out there like it, but I've got more certifications. I've got close to 80 different certifications for firearms. So I'm kind of sitting in a very unique space where I span both technology and firearms. Most of the time you get one or the other, and I've spent both.
Well, listen,
So-
when you first started talking about this, my mind was going to like, is he describing like a Judge Dredd type of gun where every time this thing fires, it's going to have like a little bar says, okay, time to change.
No. We're not there yet.
You know, or like
Not
some
quite
kind
there.
of gun that kind of, it has its own app. So it's like, hey, well, oh, look, I've done, like it automatically tracks everything that goes in it. I was like, is
No,
this what?
Nope, not
You
yet.
could have
not
gone
yet.
that direction. You could have. I mean, that's where my mind was.
You could have, but I think the firearms industry, and I'm going to let someone else come up with their own firearm. I'm just going to
Yeah.
track whatever they build. I don't want to get into the legalities of that.
Yeah, because then it would be like this massive contraption that is like,
Oh, yeah.
read everything that goes into it.
It'll
It's
have
like
a
the black-
backpack you have to reach around and rearm, and no, we're not
and then
doing
you got to
that.
worry about the battery on that running out, but it's no longer. I think what makes
Right.
weapons, they're mechanical, right? For the most part, at least
Yep.
you have a certain level of trust in it that it's not going to. Well, they jam, but it could be fixed if it does jam. Like it's
Sure,
physical.
sure.
It does stuff. It's like a laser gun or something where like the battery runs out, you're screwed. It's like I get that. I think it's cool. So you've got this addressable market. You're looking at how you can enter that market now. So to get the first client, is your challenge now money? What's the challenge?
The challenge is money and time. Being able to spend enough time off of a job so I can dedicate my time to this is really the biggest thing. Plus the length of time of municipal buying cycles and government buying cycles is about 18 months to 2 years. And so you can make all those great inroads. It's like, oh, sorry, I'm off my lunch break. I need to go back to work.
Yeah.
Just doesn't leave a good impression. So we know it's probably going to be at least 2 years before we get a first paying customer after they get the testimonial, after we get our beta. I don't want to call it a beta, but it's basically a beta test with a real live agency. And so it's money and time to be able to dedicate to it.
Yeah.
Because all the hard work has basically been done.
How much money then are we talking about? And is it your time or is it you're buying people's time? Like, do you need business developers, people that do? Well, let's talk about money first. How much money do you think you need?
Sure. So I've really been playing with that quite hard over the weekend. I wanted to make sure that I had something to talk about because I wanted to make sure I wasn't doing it on a shoestring and I was doing something actually pretty realistic. Basically, where I'm at is for about $750,000 for the first year and the same for the second year. That pays for me. It pays for our developers to go in because once we get that first customer, we're gonna have to link some things together. It pays for going for conferences. Because that's where we're going to get the most of it. We're not going to advertise on TV. Nobody's going to care. But going to those industry specific conferences with demos is what's going to really sell it. Walking into the sheriff's department and putting out a hand, shaking, Sheriff so-and-so, I'm Judson Myers. I'm the man you've been waiting to hear for. Here's my demo. Love to help you. And it's not going to be a hard sales pitch. It's more a matter of being able to show the value and education.
Do they have the budgets for this? Do they have like budgets allocated for
Very much
this?
so. Very much
You're
so.
not going to have that problem where like, oh, well, we would love it. We just don't have the budgets, government funding. Like,
Well, we're going to hear that anyway, but
yeah,
our price is, and that was one of the challenges too, making sure that our price was high enough so that we actually weren't laughed out of the room, but low enough so it was approachable and affordable. And I think we've got it down to the right thing. Our price is per officer, and of course, as we go along and we unlock more things, they're getting the police package. So, pardon me, they're getting not only firearms, but they're getting duty weapons. So all those things are coming online. And as they come online, they're getting grandfathered into that stuff, because we've got to get firearms first and get the processes down. Who do we talk to, and then add on to. Very nominal fee, anywhere from $2,000 to $1,000 a year per officer.
Okay.
And that's less than their weapon and their ammo per year.
Yeah.
One of the other things, let's think about, and I'm not going to give an opinion of what happened to George Floyd in Minneapolis, but the city of Minneapolis could have called us, even though it wasn't weapon related, and they could have called us and we could have said, we have the officers' training records. We'll talk about the training records, but we're a third party. This isn't, city of Minneapolis. But before he even went to trial, the city of Minneapolis paid out a sum of $27 million before trial.
Wow.
And when you think about those sorts of things, when you look at the optics of what happened, and again, it's a terrible tragedy. Anyone perishes when police are around, of course. But when you look at that, $27 million, it's well worth our service, because we're well below that.
Yeah.
And then you have us come as expert witnesses on the firearm, or on the training, or on procedures that the police departments
just to be able to pull a report. I mean, at that time, like, people are going to be scurrying for like as much data and information that they can get their hands on. And so to be able to like make sense of the situation. And so you would have a very clear cut, very concise, like track record of exactly how these people have been utilizing their weapons, how many times they've kind of like taken on ammo and used that ammo, what the reports were, what their questionnaire, what their responses to their psych evaluation questionnaire questions that they had. I mean, you'll have all of that tracked. The training, when they did the training, how old is it, when they're due for their next. If you're tracking everything like that, then that would be generally very, very good. Okay, so if I'm thinking as an investor, I'm like, okay, you said $750 per year, right? So
for the first couple of years,
1.5 mil for 2 years, and we're thinking, okay, would you be able to get the first customer without the money, or even an LOI, to be able to say, if you can build to this spec, we will take you on at this price point? If you got one of those, some kind of agreement like that, an investor would probably jump in on this with that. I'm just saying.
I haven't approached it that way, but the agencies I've talked to, I don't think that would be very much of a problem.
I think that would be the thing right there. If that's government money, man. Like that, to an investor, it's like, hang on a sec. What the question becomes is, can I actually invest in your thing? Because it becomes a walled garden very quickly. Only
and we also have a grant writer that we can use as well, that can help get those government grants, so that they're not having to pay for as much of it directly out of their own funds.
Oh, fantastic. Okay, that's good. Yeah. There's a grant specialist that we actually had on the podcast not too long ago, named Wesley Stevens, from a company called Qualify. He uses AI. He built his own AI to source all the grants that exist in the US, and through natural prompting or simple language that you can just type in what
Right.
your product offer is, and it will automatically, intelligently match you with all the grants that it thinks is relevant to your business. And it will even take you a few of the steps into that journey, down that rabbit hole, to start the application for you.
Oh, very nice.
Yeah.
I'm going to need his contact information.
Yeah, well, I certainly will. Wesley Stevens, Qualify. I mean, I think that I'll get that to you directly. I'll connect you directly via email. But he easily found on LinkedIn, and his business is out there. Very, very, very cool business. And it works because I've seen it work. He showed me.
Right.
On the podcast, he pulled that thing up. If you're, and he's like literally live and in action, and it works. So I would certainly say definitely go down that road. Because grants could be, this is definitely fundable. But of course,
Absolutely.
for the clients, for your customers too. If your customers, I think as well, they can get the grants to pay for it. So
you put technology and mental health together in a grant.
Oh yeah, it's juicy. There'll be some big money. There's some big money pots to put your hands in there. I'd like to. Very, very good. Okay, thinking about from an investment standpoint, I mean, as we've been talking, I've been thinking, all right, how can we structure this? How can we strategize? This isn't the kind of thing that I would normally. I mean, you'd run this as a promissory note, a convertible note easily, to get 1.5 million without having to go do anything really serious. Like, you won't have to go as far as, I had this on my screen earlier. I had this. Let me share it right now so you know what I'm talking about. This is a doodle I made a while back. And it's basically like the process for how a developer would raise capital, right? You'd have your idea of the project, whether it's real estate in terms of an apartment, land, storage, whatever. You'd have you want to contact the seller to get a price on it. You'd have your early exit, long-term exit options, however you wanted to what road you wanted to go down with the project itself, taking it off market, like with an LOI, and then dressing it up with a contractor giving you quotes for how much it's going to cost to refurb the thing and what you get at the end, and an architect potentially to show you how long it will take, but also what it will look like, because it makes some very pretty rendering. Then once you've done that, you've got some really good stuff to go on a brochure. You go ahead and you structure a deal. You say, okay, well, if investors come in, they're going to get we're going to get paid acquisition fees, disposition fees. Investors are going to get a preferred return. Investors are going to get an ROI. There's going to be exit option 1, exit option 2. And then so you kind of map this out by hand to make a really nice offer, essentially. And then you take that to the lawyers, and they're going to bill you to basically legalize it, to set it up. Get your operating manual, operating agreement, your Reg D 506C if you're going for a private placement, or if it's a convertible note, then you get your convertible note put together by a securities and private placement lawyer, or just find a template online, because they are pretty much just a business IOU. But if you've got a big enterprise product, which effectively you do have, you want to have that written up nice, so that when the conversion does take place in a year's time, and that 1.5 million turns into some level of ownership in your business, you want to make sure that they're getting the right kind of shares that don't control your company, right? So you want to, so convertible, having a lawyer put it together is good. But I will say that people time and time again are just permanently borrowing templates that have existed online that other companies have used. So that's essentially and in your case, you wouldn't need this other lawyer, like a real estate or lawyer or something like that, because it would always be subject to the private placement and securities attorney anyway. And then once you've got that, you essentially your fund is essentially your bank account, right? Which is essentially where money can go in. And in your case, your convertible note is one of the contracts that sits around this fund. And it's saying, okay, we need 1.5. I'll give you an 11% return for 2 years. And that 2 years, I'll give you your money back. Or it converts to your principal payment back, or it converts to equity. And if it does convert to equity, it will convert at this valuation. Or if there's no valuation cap, you'll get these shares at perhaps a certain discount, and therefore you'll be in a better spot than anybody else got, and you've also had a return on your investment. So that's kind of like the direction that I think you would want to go, and it's just a question of like finding investors that would jump on board with this for you. And I think if you had this deal set up and if you look at the LOI here being like let's call that, your customer with the LOI. So yes, we would do it. And you've got your offer for an investor saying, look, come in, I'll give you 12%, this is an example. We have this company, or this is one of the customers. They say, if we can get the money to actually make the thing do this at this level, then they will pay us what we need them to pay us. And that would be that's going to break us in to this entire total addressable market that is law enforcement and first responders. And this is very lucrative. This is government money. Jump on board with me.
Right.
And if I don't get this contract, for whatever reason, then you know what? We'll call it. We'll stop it short, and you'll get your money back at wherever we're at. You know what I mean? So like doing that, I think it's a very strong position to be in.
No, I would agree. Absolutely.
As a negotiation standpoint, from a negotiation standpoint.
Yeah, very much so. And it's kind of one of those things that as soon as the first court case pulls our data up and we go in front of some judge, it'll be kind of have the 80s vibe in my head. Ghostbusters, when Bill Murray comes out with Slimer and a ghost trap. Couldn't keep. Same thing with this. As soon as people know that data is available somewhere, there's a lot better firearms out there than Glock right now, but they're the ones that everyone remembers. They were the standard.
Right. Okay.
I can foresee there's going to be competitors come up, but we'll be the standard because we're the first. And everyone's going to want similar functionality, but it's how well can you throw it together? Can you execute as well as we can? Like our program's got 200 pre-canned reports ready to go. So, it's just a matter of, and honestly, when I started down this journey, I thought somebody's going to come out of the woodwork that already has this. This is such an untapped market. Why hasn't someone come up with this? I knew there was going to be someone there. There wasn't.
Wow.
Still flabbergasted. The last, like I said, the Missouri Sheriff's Association, we went to one booth where they did a few of the things that we did, sort of. But basically, we would be bringing those Judge Dredd laser cannons to guys with black powder muskets fight.
Yeah.
Because no one else has anything similar to this. It's just incredible that this hasn't been tapped yet.
Hey, well, I'm thinking my mind's just going to a different way of actually getting the money that you need for this. Like, what if this is just an idea. I'm just, as you're speaking, I'm thinking, my little light bulb moments, right? Like these little moments,
we all do.
Eureka. Yeah. What if like you just worked on getting interest from potential customers, but then actually went to a pre-established, but you've got MVP ready. You already have MVP. It's kind of, this is prototype ready. Go and get as many, letter of intents from potential clients. And then actually, instead of looking for just money, but actually for a strategic partner, someone who can just jump in and completely like put some rocket fuel under the actual app development itself, take analytics to a whole new level. You talked about big data to have the predefined data sets that need to be pulled, like to have the experience and the staff and the meatware behind their business that is instantly ported in with the money, right? The money becomes almost like the non-issue at that point. The money is like, it's not even a factor. It's really just the wealth of experience, the wealth of the know-how and knowledge of how to take, because what you're thinking, what we've discussed here, as far as like the data, what could be done with the data, like there could be so much more.
Absolutely. I could see even just the revenue stream of sending that data back to the manufacturers. How well does competitor A versus competitor B work? I could see that being worth as much as the software itself.
Right.
Like one of the things that, Ford buys Chevy trucks to destroy them, to see what they can do, to take them apart. Do they have any new things? Dell does that with HP and Apple. All the competitors do this. This would be a way of actually getting field data that they can't get without having the data source. I mean, there are 720,000 plus or minus officers in the United States in 2023. What if you could get the data from a third of them? That's real live data that you can't get anywhere else. What would that be
Yeah.
worth to a competitor?
Wow. What's that worth just as a subscription for lawyers to access, or just like other kinds of
Right.
enforcement agencies, other executive branches of the government? Like, what would they pay as a license, as a license to access the data trove?
Or as a developer, you're developing some accessory part.
Mm.
Because one of the things we're going to have to do is we're going to have to take down multiple sets of the same, multiple individuals of the same type. We're going to have to build a technical package so that if we're called to court, how do you know that this one is out of spec that caused the issue? We're going to have that data. So we're going to have a technical pack of 3D rendering of everything: weights, sizes, lengths, hardness. As as an accessories developer, I would buy that package instead of having to find my own.
All right. So yeah, absolutely. How do you get a third? I'm saying, how do we get you a third of the police, of the law enforcement? How do you get to that
That's just
point?
a question, a third, a quarter, a tenth. That's
Like,
still
could you like
number.
buddy up with like political endorsement? Like, I mean, this is really where you want to like try and get some heavyweights on your team. Like, that could be another thing that your investment could be put towards, is buying somebody in to really advocate for it, to get it to a third of the force, because really that's what you want. You want critical mass as fast as possible, because that's when the data becomes, look, one customer at a time, data is useful. Over time, if you get a third of the police force at the same time,
Right.
or relatively close to in a short time horizon, then the data that you're collecting is extremely valuable from day one. Like, by the time the first week or month has passed, you're already going to have actionable data that could be used in like 100 different ways.
Yep.
Yeah. Wow, this is a really, it's easy just to go down this rabbit hole with you. I can see why you said you spent many a night thinking through this.
Because I didn't want to build something this big. I didn't want to build. I mean, part of what's going to have to go on there is we're going to have to build a gunsmith university. I spent 20 years as a professor. The armorers need to know. Let's say once a month they have a 1 hour brown bag as to, hey, here's a new gun model. Let's show you what we found about it. That's going to be part of their continuing education units, because they have to have them to stay involved as well. So we have a troubleshooting, a how-to, knowledge-based articles, video presentations, 3D scanning, technical packages. There's a lot here, and it keeps growing. More legs are just organically coming out of the same place.
Right. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. It's a rabbit hole.
It is.
It is.
And then let's say we open it up to firefighting. We've got the same processes work with different subject matter experts.
Yeah. Because this is guns, and there's all sorts of equipment.
I actually had an interview with a north of Oklahoma City. There's a town called Piedmont. I was talking to a lieutenant. This was 2 years ago, she actually had a drunk driver that her breathalyzer was 100% accurate. It had just been calibrated. She had the documentation that was good. The calibration official was good. The sticker was crooked. The certification sticker on the side, was outside of the pre-cut lines that were laser engraved. The judge threw that case out. The scrutiny that our law enforcement are underneath, it'd be so much better so that we could go fight those battles, or at least show them where it's at. A drunk driver was allowed to go scot-free, even though the machine was correct, because the sticker didn't fit within the predefined lines. How many technicalities of that goes on every day?
Unfathomable. A lot.
Yeah. So we're there to help them. We're there to protect and equip.
Well, this is the kind of business that is. I like these kind of businesses. I think once you execute and you do get your customer groups, it's a long play.
It is.
It's a long play, and it's a good business to be in.
It's not a sexy, flashy thing, but it's a very much needed thing.
Yeah, I think it's good. All right. Well, I appreciate you sharing that with us today. I do. I hope you can get some access to the capital that you need, and we can certainly share some strategies with you later off the call in terms of like how to access the capital that you need. I mean, ultimately, it's just finding investors who have an appetite for this. There's different types of investors. Some have high risk tolerance. Sometimes they're looking just to help businesses, increase their market share. Some of them are like, I want to only invest in pre-seed, pre-revenue, and I want to 10x, 100x my money. And it's got to be a unicorn opportunity only with an IPO very, very soon. I mean, there's different appetites, different investors, but there's ways in which you can tap in or target certain groups of people that would be, and it comes down to marketing, by the way. It's really down to marketing. It's like there's networks that you can tap into. There's people that already have access to the investors that you want, and it's finding out who those people are. And they come in many different shapes and forms. Like you can call them placement agents, you can call them investment salespeople, you can call them broker dealers. You could be a buddy that just knows a guy, like anyone who already has access to the people that you want. There's going down that road, which I think is the most powerful. My whole business has been built up on building distribution networks, which is to say we find people that already have access to the people that you want. So we're going to try and leverage the trust and faith that those, the second tier have with the first. And so, because I believe that's the fastest route to getting whatever you want, whether it's a sale, whether it's money, a favor, like by having somebody in the middle to broker the deal for you. If they already have a relationship with the end party, like the end user, then you've really cut down the headache that you need to take on board. But you probably have to consider a significant fee to cover that cost, because people in the middle are already going to want to get paid, whether it's an upfront cost or a pay on performance model. And then you also have that kind of like the bread and butter. And actually, I did share it here. I'll bring it back on the screen for a sec. Like if anyone's like watched this 2-hour podcast, it's like I've finally gotten to the bottom level, which is where you get to say, like, you've built your entire business, and then you need to just actually set up the marketing material that you need, which is this, to actually go ahead and get investors, because it's basically a business. Getting investment is a business in and of itself, right? You may have heard me finishing off saying that to the other guy. That was on Joey. Yeah, and that was so. What I was saying to him was like, you've got your mainstay business, but then you've also got the business of raising capital. And so when you are raising capital, it's a different website. It's an investor portal. It's like saying, hey, this is where investors come, because they care about everything, but what they want to know first is like how much they're going to get back from this investment. And then they want to have all the information that helps them feel warm and fuzzy about it when they talk about it to their spouse, friends, family, whoever's going to judge them based on their investment decisions. Like, hey, no, I'm investing into this fantastic software. It tracks weapons from cradle to grave in the police force, and it has all these reasons why it's good, and there's big data, and there's all these offshoots. It helps them justify that. So you want to package all of that up in basically a brochure, i.e. a PPM or something to go along with that convertible note, so that people can really base their investment decision on. It's a piece of marketing material ultimately. It's regulated though. That's the difference. And then of course, what's your deployment plan? How are you going to get it out to investors? Are you going to send it out to random mailing lists that you can buy online? Are you going to find it and build a list of LinkedIn people yourself? Are you going to find those find the events that you were talking about, the conferences, and find all the delegates that attend those events, and then find out who they speak to, and try and get those thought leaders on your books too, and build a big list that way? Like, who are you going to actually get to promote the thing for you, or can you advertise to come on board with you, right? And again, it's a combination of push marketing, pull marketing, and persistence marketing. And this is your leveraging trust and faith here. This is an example of like finding other sales agents or brokers or investors themselves who can refer you to other investors that can syndicate together perhaps and jump in with you. And of course, they represent larger groups of people that can come into your deal, which is that there. You know what I mean? And of course, the end result is money dropping into your bucket, which is your bank account. Your your legal think up that you can go out there and say, hey, look, put some money in this thing. I'm a fund. I can, we're going to deploy this capital in this business. And of course, you then drop it into the company itself. That's the process, that it all. And the only way to circumnavigate this is to meet the right person at the golf course.
Sure. Yeah. I've seen
go
that.
to the right networking event, buddy up with the right person who makes the perfect introduction for you. That's the dream. That's like the, it's like, that you never heard that, like that dream of like, oh, when someone got a job and it was a really like low paying job and they were working really, really hard in that job. And then one day a customer came in and said, you such great customer service and you should work for my company, my high flying job and get all this money. It's like the same kind of thing when it comes to investments. Like people kind of believe you're going to go to one networking event and suddenly by luck and by chance, they're going to meet the, Mr. Andreessen, who's going to drop in like 5.2 billion or something, or SoftBank. Right. Like it's going to, you have to work to it. You have to get there. If you're not in the social circle, you haven't climbed that ladder in that geography. Like there's so much that comes down to like where people congregate as well, So if you're not physically there, like how can you find someone that is there, that knows those people? Well, that's when you want to market to them, reach out to them and rope them in. And of course you have a cause, you have beyond just profits. We're looking after the safety of the mental health and safety of our first responders. They're using these weapons every single day. We don't know when they're getting bullets. We have an idea based on reports, but no one's taking all of that information and collating it in this way that we can instantly understand the journey, the life cycle of this weapon and all the different ammunition that's gone inside it, when it should be maintained, how fast it should be coming up to its next due date. Because, just having a date and a sticker isn't good enough, especially if the gun's being used every frigging day. It's the thing needs to become, it's like maintenance needs to happen sooner than, not later. It's like all of this stuff becomes extremely important, and it is important. So yeah, dude, I appreciate your time here. I hope that was a nice little summary there of potential directions for you to go.
No, it's been a pleasure. Thank you so much.
No, it's my pleasure. Thank you for coming on time. But yeah, we will connect after this.
Okay.
Till next time.
Hopefully I come back and tell you great and glorious things.
Yeah, absolutely. I can't wait to see this thing in action and just like mainstay staple kind of software that's used across all law enforcement and fire everything.
Yeah.
Wish you all the
best.
Very
much so.
Bye for now.
Thanks, sir.
All right, that's it. These podcasts are pretty long. I may have to actually reduce these to one person per podcast, but I have to say, I do love these conversations. They are really good. We're talking about, in today is both entrepreneurs today had SaaS or software businesses, which is a really cool thing. And of course, I have my experience with SaaS. I built my own software platform, and it was difficult. It was difficult to get it sold. But once you have built an MVP, all you really need at that point is money. So if you still have the belief that you have in your product and you can, you're dedicated to your business, then raise money for it because you owe it to yourself to see it through. Unlike me with my business, where I built the software, I thought it was cool. I'm investing a little bit of money using credit cards with it, but I'm not raising capital for it because I don't really have the same level of belief in it as I did when I first started. And frankly, software takes such a long time to build. But yeah, listen, that was really good conversations. Can't wait to speak to our next guest tomorrow. So until then, bye for now.